Welcome to Indira Gandhi National Open University. This topic is part of the course BGP 003 Conflict and Peace Management. Today we are going to see the topic conflict over resources. This topic I have prepared two lectures, that is conflict over resources part 1 and conflict over resources part 2. I am Dr. G. Uma, faculty in the School of Gender and Development Studies, Indira Gandhi National Open University. Again, I am welcoming you all to this session. Before we get into this topic, let us see the aims and objective of this session. After listening this lecture and supportive unit, you would be able to look into the importance of resources and its sustainability, and you will also know the natural resources and its importance for the societies, and you will able to understand the role of natural resources towards conflict and what are the factors that lead to resources conflict, the relation between ecology and resources conflict, and the ways of resolving resources conflict. These are the aims for this session and the next session. Let us see the introduction about this topic. If you look at this topic, historically many wars have been fought over the possession or control over vital resources, that is water, arable land, gold and silver, diamonds, copper, petroleum, all those products, etc. Conflict over resources figured predominantly in the imperial wars of the 16th, 17th, 18th and 19th centuries and laid the groundwork for World War I. Resource conflict was less prominent during the Cold War period when ideological disputes, you all know Cold War is between the dispute was between the two ideologies. So, the resource conflict was very less prominent during the Cold War period when ideological disputes were prevailed, but has become more prominent in the post-Cold War era. Now, if you look at the newspapers and daily newses, you must be looking at the word very frequently, that is the term they are currently using is the climate change. This climate change is related to the resource conflict in this 21st century. The current resurgence of conflict over resources is nothing more than a return to past practice when such disputes were a common feature of the international landscape. However, it is also evident that resource conflict is becoming more frequent and more pronounced in some areas as the demand for certain materials comes to exceed the available supply. For example, an acute shortage of arable land and fresh water seems to have been a significant factor in several conflicts, including those in Chiapas, Rwanda and Zimbabwe. The same conditions appear to be developing in other areas of scarcity. Competition over the control of valuable oil supplies and pipeline routes have emerged as a particularly acute sources of conflict in the 21st century, with the demand for oil growing and many older sources of supply, such as earlier the oil was supplied from the United States, Mexico and China. Those places the supply of oil is declining. The pressure on remaining supplies, notably those in the Persian Gulf area, the Caspian Sea Basin, South America and Africa is growing even ever more intense in the 21st century. To complicate the matters further, many of the major producing fields and pipelines are located in or near areas of instability and have come under attack from guerrillas and terrorists. Many analysts also believe that competition for oil was a factor in the 1991 Persian Gulf conflict and the 2003 United States invasion of Iraq. So, now you know the reasons for the conflict with regard to natural resources. Let us see what are the types of natural resources. The World Bank defines natural resources as, quote, materials that occur in nature and are essential or useful to humans such as water, air, land, forest, fish and wildlife, topsoil and minerals, unquote. These resources can be classified as renewable and or non-renewable. In most cases, renewable resources such as cropland, forest and water can be replenished over time by natural processes and if not overused are indefinitely sustainable. Non-renewable resources such as diamonds, minerals and oil are found in infinite quantities and their value increases as supplies dwindle. Water, first let us see the water. Water is the very important natural resources. You all know without water it is very difficult to lead our life happily, healthily, and you must be seeing the during the period in some movies in the 1980s and 70s, you must be seeing many parts of in India, the women they used to walk for miles and miles to get one pot of water for drinking purposes. So water is a necessity of life and it is used for, water is used for drinking, washing, agricultural purposes and industrial requirements. Since water covers nearly 3/4 of the globe, it may seem to be in abundance, but that is not true. But in fact, potable water can be very scarce because whatever the water available in the sea, it is not a potable water and human beings, it is not possible for them to consume. So we think that water is abundance in this planet, but that is not true, that is not a potable water. So potable water can be very scarce commodity. Drought affects almost every continent irrespective of whether Asia, Africa and America and Europe, and appears to be growing worse. So water also becomes scarce through pollution or restricted access. According to United Nations, 1.1 billion people live without clean drinking water and 3,900 children die every day from waterborne diseases. As a global population constitutes to rise and continuously the global population is going to rise, some predict that 40 to 50% of the population increase within the next 50 years and there will be so much stress for the water. So when the demand for good quality water exceeds the supply, it will become more problem. So many of the human beings, they don't get water for their consumption. So water scarcity causes and sustains conflict in many parts of the globe. Violent conflicts over water resources have broken out in countries such as China in the year 2000, Ethiopia in 2006. In India, the conflict has occurred due to the scarcity of water in the year 2004, Kenya in the year 2005 and Yemen in the 1999. In the Darfur region of Sudan, for example, much of the unrest is due to the water shortages. So further, bodies of water such as oceans, seas, lake and rivers can also be linked to conflict due to their roles in transportation, development and culture. A population's dependence on sources of income within bodies of water such as fisheries and offshore oil fields can lead to conflict. In addition, neither fish nor water follow country borders, nor both must often be shared among countries. Dispute over fishing led to the Cold Wars between Britain and Iceland in the year 1950s and 1970s, while natural resources lie at the heart of the contested claims in the South China Sea. More than 260 river basins, for example, are shared by 2 or more countries, mostly without adequate legal arrangements. Next, now we have seen about the water. Let us see about the land. Because of population growth and environmental degradation, land that can be used for personal, industrial and agriculture purposes are becoming increasingly scarce. Possession of land result in access to many other resources such as minerals, timber and animals, and land therefore often holds high economic value. In addition, communities often have a strong emotional and symbolic attachments to land and the resources on it. It is easy to see why competition for control of valuable land, including issues of government authority and regulation, can cause or sustain conflict. Traditionally, most wars have been fought over control of land. For example, Ecuador and Peru have fought several wars over their disputed border. Besides, violent conflicts over land has occurred in Inching, East Timor, Kosovo, Rwanda and Tajikistan and in the recent past. Next, first we have seen the water, then land. Next, let us see about the timber. Timber functions primarily as a source of income. As in the case with water, timber is an increasingly scarce resource. Although forests cover 30% of the world's land area, 46% of the old growth forests have already been destroyed. Population growth and industrialization are destroying rainforest and causing environmental degradation. As a commodity, timber is a commodity like a water that is easily accessible, easy to transport, versatile, lucrative and necessary for reconstruction and development. Timber can play an important role in all stages of peace and conflict. Examples of conflict over timber can be found in Burma, Cambodia, the Democratic Republic of Congo and Liberia. Next important natural resources is the oil and gas. So, oil and gas, there are two primary sources of fuel are oil, that is a petroleum, a flammable liquid that can be refined into gasoline and natural gas, a combustible gas used for fuel and lighting. Fuel scarcity or at least access to fuel is one of the greatest concerns for developing and developed countries given their dependence on energy sources. With a greater global rate of industrialization, many countries have invested in and paid particular attention to alternative types of energy such as nuclear, electrical, wind and solar energy. The US Department of Energy estimates that by 2020, 2/3 of the world's known petroleum reserves will be consumed. Experts also opine that easily accessible oil, especially in Saudi Arabia, is rapidly disappearing and that the world will soon face the end of the oil era. Moreover, many of the world's largest petroleum reserves are located in areas suffering from political instability or conflict such as Iran, Iraq, Nigeria, Venezuela and Sudan. Thus, the value and demand for fuel, especially petroleum, allows conflicts in these areas to have an impact on the global economy. On the other hand, the developed world's increasing demand for oil and its search for supply security can exacerbate existing conflicts. Next important natural resources is the minerals. Minerals are naturally occurring substances obtained usually from the ground. According to the United States Agency for International Development (USAID), quote, valuable minerals became conflict minerals when their control, exploitation, trade, taxation or protection contributes to or benefits from armed conflict, unquote. Conflict minerals have varied commodity values and occur in many geographical locations. For example, diamonds in Western Africa, amber in Russia and gold in Indonesia. While minerals such as gold and diamonds hold significant value as gems, All minerals generate revenue and power for governments, rebel groups, or whoever owns the land and has an ability to legally and illegally to extract them. Furthermore, conflicts over minerals do not necessarily stay within boundaries. Neighboring countries sometimes compete for resource wealth and thus exacerbate conflict or prevent peace building. Diamonds are the conflict minerals that have received the most attention. They have been used by several rebels groups in Africa as a sources of income, including groups in Angola and Sierra Leone. They are easy to steal and easy to move to market and difficult to trace. Other examples of conflict minerals include colt, that is tantalite, used in cell phones, computers and game consoles in the Democratic Republic of Congo, and copper in Papua New Guinea. So now here we need to look at the role of natural resources and the environment in fueling conflict. So we must understand, we have seen what are the natural resources. Now let us look into their relationship between, we need to see the role of natural resources and environment in fueling the conflict. The relationship between natural resources, the environment and conflict is multidimensional and complex. By natural resources, we mean that is the sources of wealth that occur in a natural state such as timber, water, land, wildlife, minerals, metals, stones and hydrocarbons. By environment, we mean that physical conditions that affect natural resources, that is climate change, geology, hazards, and the ecosystem services that sustains them. That is the environment, we mean physical conditions that affect natural resources and ecosystem services that sustains them. So many countries currently face challenges related to the use of natural resources and to the allocation of natural wealth. In some cases, these challenges have led to internal, occasionally violent and tensions. Conflict over natural resources appear to fall into two broad categories, that is the conflict over a fair apportioning of wealth, that is the apportioning of wealth from extractive resources such as minerals, metals, stones, hydrocarbons and timber, which stem primarily from a failure of national governance, and conflicts over the direct use of land, forestry, water and wildlife resources, which are caused by physical scarcity when local demand for resources exceeds supply. When certain groups are prevented sufficient access, governance and distribution factors can be an additional cause. Environmental factors are rarely, if ever, the sole cause of conflict, that is the ideology, ethnicity, poor economic conditions, rapid regime change, low levels of international trade and conflict in neighboring countries are all important factors. However, the exploitation of natural resource and related environmental degradation can be significant drivers of conflict, increasing the severity and duration of violence and complicating its resolution. So, there are three principles that play a significant role with regard to conflict natural resources. That three principles, one must understand that three principles are contributing, these three principles are the contributing to the outbreak of conflict, that is attempts to control or gain access to scarce or extractive natural resources can contribute to the outbreak of conflict. Financing and sustaining conflict. Once a conflict has broken out, extractive resources may be exploited to finance arms and armies or become a strategic consideration in gaining territory. In such cases, the duration of the conflict is extended due to the new sources of financing or in an effort to gain control over the resource rich territory. Third one is, the third principle is that spoiling the prospects for peace. That is, the prospect of peace may be undermined by individuals or factions that will lose access to revenues gained from resource exploitation. These are the references I have we have wrote in this unit. Based on that unit, we prepared this lecture. Hope you understood what are the different resources and the conflict related to these resources. So, if anybody is interested more in this topic, they can go through these references, you can read and learn more from these references. Thank you so much for listening patiently for this lecture. This topic will continue in the next video also. Thank you.